Hello everyone. Just picture this. At the start of this epic adventure, we've got this super brave king and his crew of soldiers on an ultra-dangerous mission, chasing down a gigantic dragon all the way to its cave. As they explore the place, super alert to everything, out of nowhere, they fall into a dragon's trap. The dragon appears blasting fire everywhere, and the king's soldiers are caught off guard, one by one. With no way out, the king in a suspense movie vibe begs the dragon for mercy to save his life. Now fast forward a few centuries, and we land straight into another kingdom. But this one's in a tough spot. Everyone's fighting poverty and going hungry. Then enters the scene Elodie, the princess of this struggling kingdom and the heroine of our story. Elodie gets a marriage proposal from a prince from a super wealthy place, and her dad is all pumped about the idea. Elodie kind of accepts the proposal, but it's clear she's not all in. During the journey to the prince's kingdom, they encounter dragons in a freaky storm at sea, but manage to reach the palace, which is like jaw-droppingly awesome. There, a super-friendly royal servant shows them to their quarters. One night, Elodie's out enjoying the balcony view when they notice mysterious flames dancing in the mountains far away, giving off a kind of magical, kind of spooky vibe. The next day, the queen out of the blue says the wedding's all set, but she wants to save the serious talk for later. Then Elodie and the prince have this super honest conversation. She asks if he's being forced to marry. The prince, wanting to show he's into her, denies it all and says he's totally into her. They go for a walk, and Elodie mentions the fire she saw. The prince then spills the beans about an ancient ritual that's going to take place in a cave in the mountains after they get married. It seems like their fate was already written in the stars. Shifting back to the family drama, Elodie's dad has that look of dissatisfaction, especially after the beef with the queen. Elodie's mom, sensing her husband is keeping secrets, tries but fails to get anything out of him. And to add fuel to the fire, when she confronts the queen to understand the drama, she's essentially snubbed. The mom, worried sick, senses trouble brewing and warns her daughters that things are about to get real. Elodie and the prince are headed towards the mountains, the site of a recent fiery mystery. Upon arrival, they discover that the place is none other than the home of a super powerful dragon that wreaked havoc there a century ago. It seems the king of that time, trying to play the hero, attempted to face the dragon but got the worst of it. To save his skin, he made a kind of dark deal with the dragon, promising to deliver his 3 daughters in exchange for peace in the kingdom. And that's where this crazy tradition they still keep comes in. During the ceremony, the queen performs a ritual with Elodie and the prince cutting their hands to symbolize their union. But things take a turn for the surreal when the prince, in an act blending tenderness with a kind of macabre vibe, drops Elodie into a pit. When Elodie wakes up down there, she realizes she's not alone. Her cries for help awaken the dragon, and she finds herself face to face with this legendary creature among the remains of those who tried to face it before. The dragon, recognizing Elodie by name, puts her directly in the line of fire, saying she's part of an ancient agreement and that her royal bloodline is numbered. In a moment of pure adrenaline, Elodie runs in an attempt to escape, but ends up injured by the dragon's fire. With her foot burned, she improvises a bandage with what's left of her clothing and fills herself with determination to find a way out of this crazy cave. Even injured, she keeps exploring and stumbles upon a super mysterious bluish light. The light comes from a tree, but to get there, there's a challenge. A massive abyss, and just to vary, the dragon is nearby just watching. Elodie, determined, doesn't think twice and decides to jump. It was close, but she managed to cross using the knife as support. Next up, she discovers that the source of the light is some glowing bugs living in the tree. Using her ingenuity, Elodie uses her dress to make a sort of lantern with the bugs. You can just imagine the vibe, right? She continues her saga and comes across a waterfall. She was there trying to drink some water when, of course, the dragon shows up to ruin the moment. Elodie hides in a cave and has that creepy chat with the dragon who mocks her, saying she'd never managed to escape, and the cave full of names of girls who apparently met the same fate she could have. But then something incredible happens. Elodie falls asleep and wakes up with the bugs healing her wound. Who would have thought? Now, with renewed hope thanks to the magical powers of the bugs, Elodie finds a map on a small stone showing a way out of the caves. Despite the sharp rocks and the difficult path, she doesn't give up. Reaching the top of the mountain, Elodie realizes there's no way down. And there, in that total now what, she thinks about screaming for help. But she's so high up, who would hear? Suddenly she hears horses. But then the dragon shows up again, throwing reality at her, saying she'd never managed to escape. That no one ever does. Imagine the scene. Elodie at the top of the mountain, caught between hope and despair, having to face not just physical danger, but also the dragon's psychological play. Will she manage to turn the tables and prove that dragon totally wrong? There was Elodie at the top of the mountain when suddenly she hears her father's voice coming from below. This surprises both her and the dragon. The dragon goes to see what's happening, and Elodie takes the chance to descend to meet her father. Along the way, she comes across gold and 3 broken dragon eggs, and then it clicks. The story told by the queen had some parts jumbled, mixing truth with lies. The flashback reveals that the king had ended the dragon's heirs years ago, which left the beast thirsty for revenge. Back to the present, Elodie's father confronts the dragon, saying he's ready to fight to take his daughter back. Elodie, even with her father telling her to keep away, ends up catching the dragon's attention, which charges at her. Elodie's father tries to protect her and ends up being attacked by the dragon. With Elodie's father down, she rushes to him. In his last moments, her father apologizes and asks her to survive for the family waiting for her on the ship. After her father's tragic death, Elodie, with an iron determination, uses the rope to get out of the cave. The dragon tries to stop her with fire, but she's too fast and manages to escape. She mounts her father's horse, trying to get as far away as possible, but ends up having to dismount and hide among the mountains when the dragon starts chasing her. In a burst of fury, the dragon finishes off the horse. To make matters worse, the queen from her palace is blaming all the chaos on Elodie and swears she'll sort this mess out. Meanwhile at sea, Elodie's sister sees the fires on the mountains and without knowing it becomes the new target of the queen. The queen, in a dirty move, kidnaps Elodie's sister, planning to hand her over to the dragon in Elodie's place to try to appease the creature and protect the kingdom. Elodie's mother tries to stop her but ends up getting injured in the confusion. At the climax of this electrifying saga, Elodie, on her way to the ship, finds her injured mother, who even in this state fills her with courage to go save her sister, who was about to be delivered to the dragon as part of a sinister sacrifice. Elodie, still shaken by the news of her father's death, prepares for the riskiest mission of her life, armed to the teeth with magical bugs, her father's sword, and an iron determination. The dragon, in that moment of tension, expresses its grief and desire for revenge for the death of its children, eagerly waiting for the chance to avenge Elodie's lineage. But our heroine doesn't get intimidated. She creates a distraction, and at the right moment, runs to save her sister. But as nothing is simple in this story, the dragon realizes the escape plan, and things get even more dangerous. Elodie, in an act of bravery, confronts the dragon, revealing to it the truth about the painful past they both share. It wasn't the dragon's ancestors who attacked her kingdom, but the opposite. For a second, it seems like she might manage to appease the beast with her words, but a misunderstanding leads to a new wave of fire and violence. Elodie, wounded and desperate, fights for her life and her sister's, hitting the dragon in the eye in a moment of self-defense. What follows is a scene of pure adrenaline. The dragon, in its rage, ends up injuring itself with its own flames. And that's when Elodie, with the wisdom of someone who has seen and lived through the unimaginable, speaks to the heart of the dragon. She shows that revenge and the cycle of violence will lead to nothing but more pain. And in a gesture of compassion that surprises even herself, Elodie uses the magical bugs not to save herself, but to heal the dragon. After all the chaos and the battle for understanding and forgiveness, Elodie still had scores to settle. After all, the real villain of this whole story wasn't the dragon, but the prince and the queen who had set up this sacrificial scam from the start. And then, discovering that the prince was ready to repeat the same sinister move with another girl, Elodie didn't think twice, sounded the alarm and laid down the law, saying that anyone wanting to avoid a cruel fate had better get out of there. The queen, with that arrogance of someone who never learns, tried to belittle Elodie, thinking she was no match for them. But Elodie, with that confidence only someone who's faced dragons and uncovered truths possesses, warned that she wasn't alone. And in this breathtaking climax, the dragon appears, turning the palace and the royal family into ancient history, thus sealing Elodie's revenge. But our heroine wasn't just about revenge. The last scene of our saga shows Elodie, her sister, and her mother, now at peace, ready to rebuild their lives in their kingdom. Elodie, filled with wisdom and strength, comforts her mother, promising not only to recover the kingdom's treasure as compensation for the loss of their father, but also ensuring that they would rule their kingdom with justice and wisdom. In a twist no one expected, the dragon, no longer an enemy but a guardian, follows Elodie back to her kingdom. The story ends with this powerful image: Elodie, her family, and the dragon united, ready to face the future together. What do you think? Is the movie worth seeing or not? Leave your answer in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the summary of your favorite films.